Well, hi, Kirby and Jacqueline, Yati, Tadiwa. Hi, Stephen and Shannon, Michelle, Karupi and Kirby, Dallas, George and Diana, Davis and Daniel and Claire, and Carolyn and Ashna. And hi to those of you who I just made you a mic and camera check, to Caroline and Dr. OKK and Dr. Owen, and to Shanda. Welcome everyone to our Study Skills for Student Success Session 1. We're going to start with a quick round of introductions from our presenters, and then I'll talk a little bit about our session format, and then we'll get started. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to type them into the chat window, and you can use that for the rest of the session. And you can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to take the microphone. So Dr. Keiki, let's start with you for introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Associate Professor McGuire. Hello, everyone. Greetings to you. My name is Dr. Chiwe Okeke. Feel free to call me Dr. Chi, Dr. O, Dr. Keke. It's so good to see all of you here. I saw some of you for pre-O week, and I've had communications with a number of you. So excited to join you for the study skills session. And yeah, I'm just super excited that you're here to share this time with us. Thank you. Associate Professor McGuire.
Thank you. Dr. Owen.
Thanks, Dr. McGuire. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Owen. So my role at OUM, I'm the Deputy Director of Research, but I'm also your course director for your first unit for General Principles. So you'll be seeing a lot of me in the coming weeks. Yeah, really excited to have you all here. Thanks, Dr. McGuire.
Thanks, Dr. Owen. Shanda.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire. Hi, everyone. I'm Shanda Gordon. I work in admissions. I know most of you. I've hopefully helped you get to this point, and I'm excited to see you all here.
Thanks, Shanda. And Caroline.
Hi, everyone. Yep, I'm Caroline. I'm a final year OUM medical student, so I'm here to be a bit of a cheerleader and to answer any questions about what it's like to actually be an OUM student and study effectively. So yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Caroline. I see that Philip has joined us as well, who is another one of our student ambassadors. So Philip, would you also take this opportunity to introduce yourself?
I'm happy to do that. I'm Philip Newman. I'm a second year preclinical. Sorry, you're getting serenaded by my toddler playing the ukulele in the background here. But I'm happy to join on and excited to have some more folks joining us, and more than happy to share the do's and do nots that have worked for me so far.
Awesome. Thank you, Philip. I also might have some family noise in the background throughout this session, so just a heads up about that. And I will just say that to all of you who are new OUM students who may have children or pets or other types of family noise, it just happens because we're in, doing our preclinicals in spaces where we might have family noise, and that happens and is welcome, and you should continue to feel welcome in class, even if you are in a scenario where you might have some family noise. So that is totally fine. I think I've got all of our student ambassadors. If I haven't seen you pop up in the list and you're here, if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself now, that would be great. And also I see Moretta has joined us as well. So Moretta, if you wanted to take a moment to introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Talofa everyone. My name is Marita and I'm the Student Affairs Administrative Assistant, and I'm based here in our main office in Samoa. I'm also assisting with the admissions team. So I'd like to say talofa and welcome to everyone for this session. I'm excited to be a part of it too, because I believe this is my first time. So I'm eager to learn as much as I can from this session so that I can better help our students and, like, have information to give back to our students for any questions that they may have. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Retta. It's really good to see you. Okay, have I missed any student ambassadors? Are you here? Or any other faculty and staff? I think we've got everyone. Okay, I'll introduce myself. I am Associate Professor Nicolette McGuire, but my name is kind of hard to say and spell, so it's usually just Dr. M. And I'm our Associate Dean for Student Engagement. You might recognize me from any of our webinar series, or if you came to the meet and greet session a few weeks ago. And you'll also be seeing me in the second Study Skills for Student Success session and throughout a week and through the rest of your medical student journey as well. So hopefully I'm not an annoying presence for you, because you're going to be seeing a lot of me over the next little while. So in terms of the format for this session, we have a series of tips and tricks and best practices to get you set up on the right foot for having good study habits and skills as you start your medical student journey. We will have a 5-minute break on the hour. The entire session is being recorded, so you'll have access to the content after the session as well. And a recording will be sent out similar to the way that you received the announcement about this session. It'll come to your OUM email, and you will need to log in with your OUM email in order to access that session. As I said earlier, if you want to, anytime we ask questions and you want to participate in the session, you can do so by using the chat window. So you can type responses, you can do reactions, etc. in the chat window. And if you want to take the mic, you're also welcome to do that. We just ask that you use the button along the bottom bar with hand gestures and reactions, and just raise your hand, and then we know that you'd like to take the microphone, and that's totally fine. This is our first series of Study Skills for Student Success sessions. So today's is about kind of tips and tricks and best practices. And then the second session, which is happening on Thursday/Friday, will be a mock study session to get you to start applying some of the skills that you learn in this session and kind of get you on the right foot for starting your first classes at OUM. So do feel free to ask questions throughout the session and participate as actively as you're able to in whatever situation or space that you're participating from today. I know it's, it's afternoon for some of you, it's morning time for some, it's evening for others. So we, as a university that has people from multiple time zones and multiple continents, we're okay with that. Everybody's coming in a different space and they're always welcome into that space. I do want to acknowledge, though, that we're all united by the beautiful lands of Samoa, and that we are all so privileged to be going to university with a basis in Samoa, and for all of you to get to have an education that's influenced by the medical practices there, and also an opportunity to actually get to practice some medicine there in a way that enables you to have clinical experiences that are unmatched elsewhere in the world. So I'm really excited for all of you to have a basis of education and to get that clinical experience there as well. So I wanted to start off talking about the work-life balance, because that's something that people always think about when they're embarking in a new course of study or starting a new job or a new career or having a life change. Maybe they're retiring, maybe they're having children, maybe they're getting a dog, maybe they're adding a new plant to their plant menagerie. But something to always think about is your work-life balance. And unfortunately, what I want to say is that there's no separation. So we see here, you have a cell that on one end is being sucked by a curette or a pipette, and then is being poked by a curette in the other direction. And this is a feeling that you're going to be having every day now for the foreseeable future, that you're going to have competing demands, and all of them are going to be important. And there's no way truly to balance work and life. This just is your life now. Your life is that one of a medical student, and all the joys and sorrows and heartaches and triumphs that brings. So don't get upset with yourself that you're not having an appropriate work-life balance, or that there's no simple secret about how a medical student somehow has a work-life balance. There just isn't. It just doesn't exist. So keep that in mind as we start talking about study skills, is there's no hard and fast rule about how to study the best way to have the life that you have had before medical school. You are now a medical student. You now have the life of a medical student, and developing study skills is part of that, and integrating study and skills for study into your daily practice is now a part of your life as well. So welcome to that. And I like how Philip has also said, or all of the above. Okay, so I want to start out with a little bit of a focus on the perspectives of our student ambassadors. And I hoped that Caroline and Philip would share what a day in the life of a medical student is like. And I'm just going to even challenge them to say, what was your day today like? What was today like for you? And before they say that, I'll give them a little bit of time to think about whether they want to talk about today or just a general day. The pictures that you see are OUM students, and you can see that they're practicing some suturing clinical skills, and you can see they're on the bed of a patient. And this is like, I think, what you might picture when you think about a day in the life of a medical student. And what I want to tell you is, yes, that will all come, but there's a lot of work to get to that point. And there's a lot of skills that need to be mastered before you even get to the basics of doing the clinical skills and being at the bedside. So everything is in service of your being able to safely care for patients, but got to get to that point first. Okay. So I'm going to start with Caroline, because she seems like she's ready to talk about her day, what the day in the life of a medical student is like. So Caroline, why don't you start, and then Philip can go second.
Okay, thanks, Dr. M. A day in my life of my medical student journey. Today, for example, I'm in Australia, so it's the beginning of the day, and I'm on clinical placement. So I've just arrived at at the Flying Doctors base. Actually, I'm doing a rural medicine placement. So so far I've met with my supervisor, and we've discussed a patient and his medications. But really, I suppose this placement has required organization in terms of me feeling ready practically and emotionally, and having the right swipe and badges, and bringing my stethoscope and my logbook, and making sure I've got my lunch, and that I've spoken to the right staff, so I know where I'm going every day. So there's a lot of practicalities and preparations, as well as finishing off some revision for an exam last week, which I did last weekend. So a kind of rolling, overlapping set of activities that are not all clinical. So it feels really good to be out on placement. Be encouraged that during the preclinical years, where you have your head down studying, mostly in your computer these days, it's worth it, and it's worth getting that firm foundation with the basic sciences, so that when you are out on rotation, you've got some packets of knowledge at your fingertips. But yes, I guess the day in the life of a preclinical student is probably quite different to the clinical student. So maybe Philip can talk about the preclinical situation. And I'm
Thanks.
happy to answer questions about clinicals later on. Thanks.
I did hear that there's like some time management that's required, a little bit of like mental gymnastics, like you kind of have to be managing multiple things at one
Yeah,
time.
yeah, definitely the overlapping. This is me trying to explain how you have lots of things going on in parallel being a medical student, and I think that's true for preclinicals. Certainly was for me, whereby you've got your other commitments in your life that you're still running, and you're making sure that you've got a good balance so that you can really set aside specific time to study medicine, and that you're not just trying to fit your medical studies in around your busy life, because you need consecrated time for quiet, isolated study to succeed in the topics.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also heard you were saying that you were studying for an exam in the midst of all that too. So it's a lot of, you know, it's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's right.
thinking
Yes.
through all the things that need to be done.
Yeah, that's right. And having the resources, resources is a big one, actually, knowing what your favorite, building some resources that you like and that you know, so that you've got your go-to trusted, whether it be for the USA or for us here in Australia, we've got local guidelines, so that you don't waste time on the internet or on Clinical Key trawling through to get the answers or support your revisions and studies. Yeah, so time management is really important. Yeah, and having a cheerleader. I try to be a cheerleader, but every cheerleader needs a cheerleader. Someone who's checking in on you, how you're going. That's very important, actually, so that you're not isolated. When you're out on placement, and I'm away from home, I'm in another state, I'm not in my home state, just checking in regularly with family, you know, taking with you a few things like your favorite book or a candle or your favorite mug when you're on the road. So it's exciting to be on the road and seeing different clinical settings in the city, or I've chosen some rural settings, some regional, smaller hospitals. So yeah, taking care of yourself is very important, and not expecting too much of yourself because you're still learning. Yeah, just you know, I mentioned the picnic before, having some nice food along the way. It's like, okay, take your coffee with you if you.
Eating is important.
Yeah, if you
And I
need
heard
those
you
comfort
mention like
things.
bringing books and like a candles, because thinking about your like physical space, we're actually going to talk today about like actually
Yeah.
creating an environment to study
Yeah.
in, like is actually really important. Like you can't be frazzled or in like a space that's not optimal to your learning style and try to
Yeah.
study like it will affect
Yeah,
you
you
in
do
a way that
need
you'll expend too much energy. So even like having some special objects around can be really helpful. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah. Yeah, the private space is very important, and setting that up at home. I don't know what Philip's managed to do, but when I started preclinicals, I just kind of chose a room at home and said, right, this is going to be my study, and where you can close the door and get in the headspace. for, you know, thinking, studying. And now it's in a hotel room, but I can close the door and I've got Wi-Fi and I can read on Clinical Key and keep in touch with university and supervisors and other students as well. So that's having a kind of buddy group. I was fortunate enough to have a cohort of other OUM students that we kept in touch on a WhatsApp chat group and encourage each other. So keeping in touch is very important. Even though you need your quiet, private space, you got to come out of your study zone and link in with others. I think that's crucial, actually, as well as family and people who are non-medical, non-clinical, other people who are going through the syllabus with you. And yeah, that's...
Yeah, I think, and I've heard this from a lot of students, so I'm comfortable saying, which is that like some people are introverts and some people are extroverts. Some people like in the past have really enjoyed like studying with study groups and they get a lot of energy around being with other people and studying with others. And other people are more introverted and they prefer to study alone. And so what I want to say is to those of you who identify as extroverts, like keep at it, keep doing that. And people who are introverts, like good on you. You're welcomed in the space to be an introvert. And it's great being an introvert in a university where your classes are online because you can be in a space on your own, but you absolutely have to make the effort to be part of study groups as well. You will be missing out on your own educational experience if you don't push yourself to be part of a study group as well. Even if your study group, you just have like even just one other person. So I'm just going to invite you, if you're a self-identified introvert, to push yourself to make some study buddies as you start university. It will really help you along the way. Philip, would you like to share with us your day in the life of you today? What's going on for you? I know it's a bit later in the evening, so you've already had a full day.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's I'm on the West Coast, so it's not quite too late yet. Probably better to do what my typical day used to be because right now it's just pure chaos. As I'm moving my family across the country from Ohio to Oregon, and all the fun that comes with unpacking and having two new dogs and a toddler, and holding down the fort by myself. But my typical day, I was one of these that that decided to work for the whole preclinical portion. So my day would tend to start with I had a fairly long drive to work. It's about an hour. So I would typically listen back to previous lectures from either the night before or from study sessions to just try to make sure I hadn't missed anything, because a lot of times during lectures, even with an hour break, sitting in the same spot, you can kind of zone out. So I would do that during my lunch times. I would try to at least review the PowerPoints for the upcoming lectures, try to make sure that I was ahead of kind of anticipate areas where I may be familiar and areas where I may not be as familiar, and try to get the readings done as much as possible before class. Staying ahead really made a big difference, especially early on when I was running into a lot of completely new subject material. So I would tend to do that and then attend lectures, and then either the night after lectures before going to bed, I would continue to catch up on the readings or try to read ahead for the morning. Once we started the system-based modules, then there was a mini case component, so I was trying to make sure that I had my mini cases at least well researched and as prepared as possible beforehand, the day prior. And then if there was any kind of fine tuning or touch ups I wanted to do, I had the rest of the day to do it. And that was pretty much it. That was the day-to-day life. I work as a nurse practitioner, so the day tends to be fairly busy, but there's a lot of downtime in between seeing patients in the hospital or in the clinic. So I'll try to fit in those opportunities to study. And when I had dedicated time, I would make sure that I really kind of focused on going through the material in depth. And then if I didn't have if I had 15 or 20 minutes, then I would circle back on an area where on first pass through maybe I need a little bit of revision, like trying to understand the coagulation cascade a little bit better. That's not a one and done kind of read. That
No.
you have to go back and do it over and over and over again. So that was about it. Then there's a 48-hour window on the weekends to take exams. When I was early on, when I was a much more much more astute student, I would try to make sure that I got that done on Saturday so that I had Sundays to kind of relax before Monday started back up. Now I tend to kind of wiggle it in the last minute that I can, but again, that comes with the work-life balance. So I've had to adapt to the first year of the program. I was still living at home. Then I took a traveling nurse practitioner job to help support the family and pay for school. So I've been living on the road, living out of hotels for about a year and a half, and just kind of being adaptable and finding those opportunities to work in study time, not necessarily giving up when you feel like there's a subject that you're really struggling with, but just hunkering down and being available to meet with your advisors or to meet with your professors, and being proactive was really helpful for me early on, especially with some of the coursework that I was not familiar with at all. So that was the day in the life. The day in the life now is wake up, fight off a toddler and two dogs, and take her to school and work, and come home and fight them for another 3 or 4 hours, keeping them from killing each other and eating each other's food. And then and I see now I'm failing because the dog just ate the chicken nuggets. But yeah, that's where that's the day-to-day life.
So I mean, I swear I did not talk with Philip about this beforehand, but some of the things he said were exactly what I want you to know, so I want to highlight a couple of those things. So the first was that he prepares before the lectures, right? He goes and reviews the material before he goes to class. He does the readings, do the readings, go into Clinical Key and read your textbooks, okay? So prepare in advance, read, and then attend class. This is a really big one. It's really important to attend class. You will not get the full content of the course if you do not attend class. You need to attend class. So you can see that even though Philip has been moving across the country, even though he's been living out of hotels for a year and a half, even though he's wrestling dogs and toddlers, he still goes to class. So that's really important. And then the last one is don't give up. Do not give up. You are here. You can do this. You would not be here if you could not do it. You've already made it this far. That means you can make it through. Do not give up. And if you feel like giving up, reach out to the people in your support system. We're going to talk about that today. Okay, so that's a little bit about the life of a medical student. Studying never stops. It's a part of your life now. It's really important, but it's one of the reasons why you're here. You want to study medicine. You don't want to just walk in and be a doctor. You want to be an amazing, safe doctor. So studying is part of all that. Okay. One other thing I want to talk about is the biggest difference between other degrees and a medical degree. And so this is a interactive portion of the session. And I want you to tell me, what do you think the biggest difference is going to be about other degrees that you've done and being in medical school? So you can tell me in the chat window and tell us in the chat window, or you can raise your hand and take the mic if you'd like. There are no right or wrong answers. It's just, what do you think is going to be the biggest difference between this degree and degrees that you've done in the past? And that's really important for you to reflect on today, because it's going to be a real motivator in terms of how you think about study, the time that you invest in studying, and the time that you invest in getting a study strategy that works for you. And it doesn't necessarily something that will just oh, well, this seems like it's something that might work for me. You're going to have to work through a few different study strategies before you find the one that's right for you. Okay, so we've got some great people in the chat. telling us what they think the biggest difference will be. Again, there's no wrong answers. They're just things that are interesting to think about and reflect on. But for those of you who are not able to read the chat window, or if you're joining us via recording, you don't have access to it, I'm just going to read off some of those answers because I think they're really great. So Graham says 100% online is the biggest difference between this degree and previous degrees. And I see Dr. Okeke shaking her head. Yes, like it's going to be a real difference in a scenario where you maybe felt compelled to go to class because there was maybe some peer pressure of like showing up and being in class versus being online. Dr. Okeke, do you want to add anything to that? Do you want to make any comment about that being a really big difference?
Well, yeah, I think that you hit the hammer on the nail. I think that being in a 100% virtual environment does lend itself to a lot of self-discipline to show up in these spaces because you're sitting behind a computer and may feel isolated, but we know at OUM we have created a community of learners that really have a welcoming space for everyone to come and show up. And Associate Professor McGuire, you already mentioned this, so I'll reiterate, coming to those live sessions not only builds community, but it helps you create those bonds to have a study group that can be as small as one other person. And so being in a 100% virtual environment is a difference from a brick and mortar environment. However, we at OUM have really built a community of learners that's welcoming in this virtual space. And you're not alone. No one's alone in this.
Oh my gosh, that's so important. Say it again.
You are not alone.
You're not alone.
Not alone. You're not alone.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Daniel says drinking from a fire hydrant compared to drinking from a nice little glass. And that's exactly what Dean Boone Robinson would say as well. So if you haven't had a chance to look or to attend or to watch the webinar with Dean Boone Robinson, she talks about that in a little bit of detail too. And it's something that you'll hear from her frequently. It is like drinking from a fire hydrant. And guess what? You're expected to drink all that water. And guess what? You'll figure it out. You will. You can do it. Don't give up. You can drink the fire hose, I promise. Diana says there is much responsibility and liability academically and then professionally when we are licensed. That's a really good thought, Diana. It's everything that you are learning now from day one is going to save someone's life. You don't know who's going to come into your practice, who's coming into the emergency room, who's heading out to the ICU, and it's going to be something that you learned on the first day or on the 322nd day or the 584th day that's going to save that person's life. So suddenly you have this responsibility. And, both it becomes a liability or a professional responsibility that information is going to save someone's life. What a wonderful power that you have. And that's something to that would be a great post-it note to put on your computer as a motivation or something to be thoughtful about when you're like, oh, I can't study anymore. I don't want to go to class today. What do you think, Dr. Okeke?
I love that. I absolutely love that. I was just thinking about getting a post-it note to write it down. So I love that. I completely agree. Yeah.
Dr. Okeke and I are on the same wavelength. That's why we developed this course together. And I can't believe I forgot to say to this point, but this study skills session is underpinned by a course on Moodle called Study Skills and Test-Taking Strategies that Dr. Okeke and I developed. So we'll provide the link, I think, was in the email that you guys received, but we'll provide that link as well. It's a really great resource for each of you. Okay, Shannon says amount of content to know and remember. Oh, Caroline, do you want to comment on that?
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to add, not to stress out if you're early on in the medical journey of studying. that you think you can't save someone's life and you don't know enough to save someone's life, and you panic that the content is massive. How are you going to remember everything? All of these things we've been discussing, which are motivating, but I think I have found that I didn't know at the outset how many times topics are revisited. So I'd like to advise people in first year, this is not the only time you're going to learn about the coagulation cascade, for example, that Philip was mentioning. You get presented it in an early lecture and you think, okay, this is my only opportunity to learn about it. And if I don't understand it, this is going to be a problem. And all the major themes in medicine come around again and again and again. And I didn't know that at the beginning. And now in retrospect, I look back and think, oh, well, that's really good, because you get a kind of foundational presentation of a topic from maybe a cellular or a pharmacological point of view. And then you revisit that in terms of physiology the year after. And then you revisit that in the clinical years with a clinical focus. And so by the time, a few years down the track, you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have panicked about that in first year, thinking this is my only opportunity to learn it and I'm going to lead to save someone's life with that knowledge. No one's asking you to save someone's life when you're even in final year. So you have time, and the course is well designed to walk you through the topics. And yeah, you will get there. So it's just something I thought was worth sharing, that will relieve some of the panic when you think you're saving people's lives, which you will be, and not necessarily in an emergency setting. People think of the kind of heroic acts. There's a lot of chronic disease and mental health out there that you'll be saving people's lives in that way too. So thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn. I think that's also a really good reminder not to give up, right? Like, if you don't get it the first time and you're like banging your head against the wall, like, don't give up. Maybe you'll get it the second time around, and don't give up and think, well, I can never be a doctor because I can't get this one concept. Like, maybe you just didn't get it in that context and you'll get it the next time around. So don't give up. And back to what Dr. Okeke said, which is, you're not alone. Like, people think like, why can't I get this? I'm the only person that doesn't understand it. Guess what? You're not alone. Other people also don't get it. That's why it's really important to be a part of study groups and have at least one other person and be like, yeah, I don't know about that either. Don't give up. We're in this together. So thanks for that. Okay, so Shannon had said amount of content to know and remember, and Jacqueline is also talking about the volume of learning as well. Like, there just is a lot, but it's just part of your daily practice now. You're gonna learn things every day. Don't beat yourself up that you didn't learn as much today as you thought you were going to, or you didn't learn as much today as you did yesterday, or yesterday you got 100% of the 10 concepts that you were studying, and today you only feel like you got 5 of them. Every day you're going to be learning, and every day is a good day if you are studying and learning things. So the amount is good, just keep at it. Jacqueline also talks about the moving therapeutic guidelines, and part of being in medical school is that you are a lifelong learner, and this is something that we're starting today, right? Studying is now just part of your life. You don't stop studying when you're out of medical school. Oh no, you're still studying and learning new things every single day, which includes things like therapeutic guidelines. Diana says the depth of material is beyond previous sciences, even advanced pathology, advanced health assessment, and advanced pharmacology that I've taken. I just love Diana's thoughtfulness and honesty there. The depth is going to be so deep, like you won't even know the depths and the dankness and the mud at the bottom of that well. but you're going to come out of it and be like, whoa, I didn't know my brain could do that. You're going to really impress yourself with the amount of depth that you could get into topics. But don't beat yourself up if you feel like you just gotten stuck in the muck at the bottom of the well. There will be more water. You'll be able to get through it. And Shannon was saying she feels the same. Michelle wanted us to know you're not studying just for an exam. The biggest difference is that you're not studying just for an exam, you're studying to save someone's life. And I think that's a good spot to end that discussion on. But Diana has reminded us not to give up and that imposter syndrome is real. None of you are imposters. You are all here because you've earned the right to be here, because we know that you are capable of getting through this degree. We know that you are each going to be amazing doctors in your own right and with your own set of unique skills, knowledge, and abilities. And Caroline finally wants us to know, in the clinical years, lifelong learning is not just from study and reading, but other students and colleagues and patients. That's right now too. You'll be learning from other students and learning from people, not just from books and guidelines. So lots to think about and reflect on. If you didn't share today, I just invite you to maybe write down what your thoughts are and what you think the biggest difference might be, and reflect on that as we go through our content today, or maybe as you're going through a week, or maybe in your first couple of weeks of general principles. So I'm going to turn the mic over now to Dr. Owen to speak with you a little bit about preparing for your first unit. Dr. Owen, would you like to take the mic, please?
Thanks, Dr. Maguire. I've loved all the conversation so far, hearing from some of the students, and just to reiterate all of the comments about the volume of content and that fire hydrant analogy, we don't ease you in. First week of general principles is busy. There is a lot of content, so we turn the fire hydrant on straight away. So just be prepared for that. And I'll speak to you more next week during orientation. And once the Moodle page is all up and running, then you'll hear from me quite often about the specifics of general principles. But I just wanted to give you some information to think about as you're going through. And I think Dr. Maguire and Dr. Okeke will go into more detail about some of these as you go through the session. But creating a study timetable can be really helpful. And I think this is an ideal time to do that. So thinking about all the other things that you have going on in your life and what time you're going to dedicate to your studies, because you need to find dedicated study time to get through all of the material and to learn everything that you need to know. And to explore some of the different study strategies that are available. So using the Moodle resource that Dr. Maguire and Dr. Okeke have set up, and have a look at some different study strategies, and maybe have a think about ones that you think will suit you and that you'll be able to integrate into your study timetable, and specifically active learning strategies where you're actively engaged in the material and actively recalling information. That's a really important thing, because some study strategies can tend to be a bit passive, and so you want to make sure that you're actively engaging in that content. And the final point was just to think about signing up for the SSA program, which is our Student Success Advisor program, which I'm sure Dr. Okeke will talk to you about, because she manages that program and does a brilliant job of it. And that's a really good resource as well to help you connect with the university and to have someone there who can help guide you through a lot of these things, like a study timetable and study strategies, and just help you, especially in the first unit for general principles. It can be a bit daunting to come in and have all of this information to learn, as well as sort of the format and the online aspect of the university, and it's just quite overwhelming. So having someone there who you can chat to can be quite helpful. But yeah, that was sort of all I wanted to say, and I'll see you guys more in the coming weeks. But yeah, you can do it, and I'm glad you're all here.
Thanks, Dr. Owen. I have one question for you, and I know we'll hold kind of a flurry of questions because you'll also be participating in a week and be giving some additional details about general principles then, and the general principles classroom will also be available to students at that time, so they'll be able to kind of see a little bit more of the information. But the question that I have is specifically about studying, which is there like one study strategy that works for all students in general principles?
Absolutely not. There's a wide variety of different study strategies, and you have to kind of pick and choose. There's definitely like a learning curve, even with learning what's going to be the most effective study strategies for you. So yeah, you have to kind of think about it and play around with it and be adaptable. I think that was something that Philip mentioned as well in terms of organizing his life. But yeah, being adaptable with your study strategies is important as well. So.
Do you think, like, do most students come in like knowing what their study strategy is going to be and like keeping that one throughout the course?
I don't think so. Yeah, I was an academic advisor when I first started at OUM, and found that a lot of students tended to work through a few different study strategies, and then they found one that really stuck. Yeah, I don't know if Caroline has a different perspective, because I know she had a really good study strategy all the way through with the time that I knew her during preclinical. But I don't know if that was something you had immediately from the start, Caroline.
I think because of past experience, past study degrees, I just kind of picked past successes, knowing that things have worked for me in the past. But I did have to get creative with the online study, not being used to everything online and moving away from textbooks. I'm very much a kind of pencil and paper person, and I took lots of notes in the preclinicals, but I've tried to get away from that because I have to get hefting all these notebooks around with me. So I did indeed develop new strategies, even though I had some old ones that were good. So it's good to keep an open mind. And like Philip was saying, being on the road is you get creative about what you can take with you in your bag or in your mind. And yeah, for sure. Flashcards is another one that I learned from another student who found flashcards useful. And I used to always poo-poo flashcards. And then I'm like, oh, actually, this is really good. This is really working for me, because I could keep them on my phone. You have like a deck of favorite pictures or dot points. And if you're stuck somewhere waiting for a bus for an hour, you can, a bit like what Philip was explaining, you just use the time to bring up those flashcards so that you're doing recall, or you could even just sit there and think, right, before I look at the flashcard, can I remember it without looking at the flashcard, the active recall? So yeah, sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it's good. I just wanted to see if Dr. Okeke wanted to answer any of those questions from the SSA perspective around, is there one study strategy that seems to work for general principles students, or are there many students that kind of come in and then just use that strategy all the way through? What would you tell us?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I echo what Dr. Owen said. I've heard so many good, just a rich resource of answers here. But to answer your question, students do kind of have to pick from the smorgasbord of study styles and learn themselves best. And I can be honest, now it won't take you guys this long, but I think I best learned my study style when I became a faculty member, you guys, if that makes any sense. And what that harkens back to is that active learning that I've heard Associate Professor McGuire say, and Philip and Carolyn and Dr. Owen, which is that active learning that has to happen regardless of what study style you choose, is really going to help solidify some of those concepts. And one of the things that I tell students in student success advising sessions, once we've had another number of sessions together, is that you need to be in a study group with at least one other person where you are teaching them as much as you are learning from them. And so that active learning study style is just one example of teaching to the study group partner and learning from the study group partner. And I've even told students in sessions, Associate Professor McGuire, I've said, well, emulate me, make fun of me when I'm teaching and pretend like you're Dr. Okeke teaching whatever I'm teaching, and then and then switch, because that is a way, teaching and actively learning is a great way to kind of use the study strategies. But to answer your question, you'll just kind of have to pick and choose what works well for you. But that's a good place to start. And I've heard a really good bevy of answers.
I actually like really love that too, because we do talk about you know, using teaching someone something as an active learning style.
Yes.
But I love like pretend to be Dr. Okeke and teach something to like get off the like worry that you have, like, oh, I'm not a professor, I can't teach. It's like, no, I'm just gonna pretend to be Dr. Okeke and then I'm gonna teach it. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
I hope that some of you will try that and then let Dr. Okeke know that you're doing that. All right. So thanks, Dr. Owen, for that. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we move on to the next section?
Just on different study strategies as well.
Yeah.
It's not just necessarily each person, it's the content that you're learning. So different study strategies can work for different types of content. So you might find things that are really helpful in general principles. And then when you jump into the organ system units, you have to make some adjustments there. So even if you figure out what works in general principles, still be open to adapting that later on as well. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks. I think that's really important because some students like are like, yep, I've got my study strategy, like I'm good to go. And then they get like into cardiovascular or endocrine. They're like, oh, this study strategy is not working anymore. Or like, I'm not doing well anymore. It's like, oh, well, you still are doing well. You still know how to learn the material. You just need to change your study strategy. It's just not working for you in this particular unit. There's nothing wrong with you. Just switch it up and see if it works better. So I think that's a really important point. Thank you for making that. All right, so we want to give you some tips and tricks and skills to help you choose your study strategies and to get exposed to thinking about how to study strategically in a way that's going to work for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the fundamentals and I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Okeke. So study skills fundamentals first. And these topics, there's some additional kind of materials on these in your study skills and test taking strategies course, which is here. Looks like this beautiful little Moodle course, which looks like your other Moodle courses as well. And the first one here is the study skills assessments. You can go into the course and grab the study skills assessment. And this is really what I would recommend you do even after this session, between this one and study skills session 2, where we're actually going to do some practice and mock study sessions. And Dr. Okeke and I are going to do a mock session for you as well. So in the study skills assessment questionnaire, the way that it works is that it asks you to look at some of your existing academic skills and rate kind of the different types of academic skills that you have, and to rate them in terms of the skills that you have that you never express that skill and you always use that skill. So they're broken into time management versus procrastination, levels of concentration and memory, the types of study aids and note-taking that you use, the types of strategies that you use on tests, and the types of anxiety or anxiousness or worry that you have going into tests, the type of information processing that you use, the motivations and attitudes you have for studying, your ability to select main ideas, to test yourself, to read material, your writing and reading comprehension. So it's not to say that like if you never do any of those things that you can't learn those things, or that you have to have all of these, you know, however many things are on here, that you have to have an always on all of these. That's not the point at all. It's to give yourself an honest assessment of where you're at. And so then when you go into thinking about developing your study skills, you're like, oh, I'm really, really strong in the writing area. So I'm going to use that as a strength as part of my study skills. Or I thought I was like really wanted to be a doctor, but when I do the study skills assessment, like, oh, my areas of motivation like are a little bit low. Like, what can I, what kinds of things can I think about to help improve my alertness in class, or how can I change my schedule a little bit so I can attend class more regularly? So this works best if you really give it like an honest assessment. I'm not asking you to turn this into me. I'm not asking you to submit it into the study skills session classroom so that Dr. OKK and I can grade you. I absolutely do not want you to do that. I just want you to do an honest assessment for yourself. What I would recommend is that if you've had a chance to meet with your student success advisor, if at some point you want to share your study skills assessment questionnaire with them, it'll be really helpful because they can say, oh, you identified here like you wanted to work on your time management. You're really good in your time management. You want to up your skills there. Like here's what we're going to work on together to help you improve your time management skills. So you're like A+ in your time management, and let's work on that together. You might also, with your study group, be like, oh, I'm really kind of not so high in the concentration memory category, and I'm really high in the note-taking area. So I want to be in a study group with someone who's really high in concentration memory, and they want to be in they're lower in note-taking. They want to be someone in note-taking. That can make really good study partners if you guys are kind of playing off each other's strengths and accounting for each other's not so good areas. And they can give you some tips like, oh, I have really good memory. These are the kinds of skills that I use, and you can start to learn from them for that. So I really encourage you to have a look at the study skills assessment questionnaire, to take it for yourself, and to do that as soon as you're able to. So that's the first one. The second one is your mindset. So we've already talked a lot about today about like, do not give up. Just be in the mindset that you're not going to give up. It's okay though to like give up for 5 minutes, give up for 10 minutes. Like, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. I need to go take a walk. I need to drink a glass of water. I need to give up on this particular topic lecture because I just don't get it right now. I'm just going to move on to something else. Like, never be in the mindset that you don't get something because you're bad at it. You don't get it because you're not smart enough. No, you're just not getting it because it's just not clicking today. It's not you. It's just whatever's going on, it's not working. That particular tool isn't working. Try something else. This particular moment isn't working. Try another time. This particular reading isn't for me. Talk to another student about it and maybe learn a little bit. So be in the mindset of not giving up, of just recognizing you can do it, just maybe not in this particular moment. You'll be fine. Third one is environment. So don't try to study in an environment that you do not like. Just don't. You're just gonna be mad. You're gonna be like, I don't really want to be here. I'm not really like, maybe like I'm uncomfortable, like maybe I'm hungry. There's distractors. I'd rather be distracted than like be in this space. Like, study in an environment that you like being in, because you're going to be studying for a long time. So make sure you like the environment that you're in. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, some people actually really like a super noisy environment. Like, I know for myself, I actually really enjoy like being in a coffee shop that's like a buzz and everybody's like talking. I just get in the zone, and I just like, all of that just becomes background, and I'm just like focused on what I'm doing, preparing my lecture or doing whatever. I don't record lectures in environments like that, so don't worry. I don't teach in lectures like that. But if I'm preparing something, or if I'm, I'm good in a super loud environment. Maybe you're like that too. Maybe in the chaos of like toddlers stealing chicken nuggets from dogs or the other way around. Like maybe you thrive in that kind of environment. Maybe you're someone who needs like absolute quiet. Maybe you need to get headphones or earplugs. Maybe you're someone who needs to be outside. Maybe you're someone who needs to be inside with like nice smells, maybe a diffuser, lots of snacks around, like pictures of things that are motivating to you. It doesn't really matter what it is, but explore what a nice environment for you is. You can think about environments that have worked in the past. You can just maybe take a moment and like visualize where you feel like most relaxed and at peace. And maybe that's like on a beach in Samoa, and you're not going to be on a beach in Samoa when you're like at your computer, but maybe you can like have a picture of the beach in Samoa in your environment or on your laptop or something like that. So like the environment that you're in. And then the last one, I try to, you know what? I'm gonna do this. It is right on the hour. I'm just gonna keep with my 5-minute break on the hour. I'm just gonna stop right there, and we're gonna resume on Study Skills Fundamental 4 at 5 minutes after the hour. So take a stretch, bio break, get a glass of water, do whatever you need to do. Just get up for a moment or two and take a health break, and we'll resume in 5 minutes.
Dr. Okeke, are you still here?
I am.
Do you want to meet Athena?
I would love to meet Athena.
Let me get her on the camera. Hold on a second. Come here. Well,
So
we're
funny
straight.
you brought her up, Philip. I was just gonna talk about Athena in my segment, and I still will.
Say hi.
Oh, hi, Athena.
Can you see her now?
Oh, hi, Athena.
She's- No, it's
Oh,
not.
hi, Athena. Oh, she's so sweet.
Try
So
to
nice.
her.
Well, please tell her I'm sorry the dog ate her dinner, but it's nice to meet her.
I will.
So nice to see her. I was just about to talk about Athena in our
Yeah.
next section, Philip.
Sure. All right. I'm gonna see if I can get her to calm down and maybe try it again.
Sounds
right.
good. Thank you
All
for
right.
letting me
Yeah.
see her.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, I'm just gonna give about 30 seconds for everybody to get resettled, and then we'll get started. All right, so we talked about the study skills assessment that you can find in the study skills and test taking strategies classroom. We talked about mindset. We talked about environment, and I see some people provided some info in the chat window, some comments about that. So if you have comments on any of those, I invite you to add that in the chat window, and I'm going to talk about routine now. So I'm speaking about routine as someone who was very resistant to ever having a routine. But I would think about like how like kids and babies and like dogs and like plants all need routines. And I'm like, I'm like an adult now, I don't need a routine. You absolutely need a routine. And the reason is not because you need the things that babies and kids and plants and dogs and cats and plants need, but you just got to take the extra decision making and guesswork out of it all and just have a routine so that you don't have to wake up every day with like a sense of like, oh, am I going to get it all done today? The way that you're going to get it all done is to not worry about getting it all done and just have your routine. Like, oh, I don't need to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and worry that I'm not going to get through all my material. I just remember that I have a routine and I'm going to get through the things that my routine allows. So your routine absolutely shouldn't just include study skills. It should have all the parts of your day. You should have a routine where you wake up at a nice time in the morning for you, where you have time for eating and hydration and exercise and taking care of the other beings around you that require care if you're in a scenario where you have other beings to care for, and that includes yourself as well. So you absolutely are important and are needing of that care. That should be a part of your routine. And then you should have a routine for how your study is worked into your day. Is my routine that at a certain time of day, that's when I go into my study space and I begin studying, and I'm doing studying for this amount of time in the space, and I take a break. Then I come back and I study for this amount of time in the space, then I take a break. Then I maybe take a longer break and I exercise, or I go meet with a friend, or I talk with my study group, or I call my mom so she can tell me how wonderful I am and provide me the motivation for the day. And then I maybe go to a different study space and I study, and then I take a break, and I stay in that space and I study, and then I take a break. And that is my day. I just have a routine. That's what I do every day. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to plan my day or try to figure it out every day. I just follow my routine day in, day out. I have a weekly routine that says I'm doing this block on, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm doing these kinds of things. I have religious practice, so that goes in on a particular day of the week or a certain part of my day. All of that just gets planned for you. Just let someone else let your past self take the wheel. Don't worry about trying to figure out how you're going to fit it all in. It's also absolutely important you're not just doing like the basics of like feeding yourself and exercising. You do also need to take the time for the activities in life that you find important and fulfilling. So that means, continuing a religious or spiritual practice that you have and ensuring you make time for that, ensuring people who are part of your religious or spiritual community know that you are in medical school so they can provide you with support. That includes continuing the hobbies that you may have. That includes having time and space for family members, for your alone time where you're not studying and you're not doing work, but you have time for yourself. All of those things are important. You're a human in the world. You don't have to stop being a human in the world just because now you have a really important job that where you need to study every day in order to save someone's life. Maybe you're not going to do as many things as you used to do. Maybe you now can't go to football practice 3 days a week and be on a travel squad. But like, can you still play touch football? Maybe, with your team every other Sunday or something like that. Absolutely don't lose touch with the people in your life that are important to you, but be realistic with that timing. So that's routine. So there's a couple of things in the chat window that I want to share that people added. So for everyone's benefit, Caroline shared to park it and revisit. So you could maybe want to have that as a post-it note. You're like, oh, I'm not getting this. I'm going to park it and revisit later. And I could even put that on my notes, like on the section, right? Whether I use, an electronic one or if I'm using physical notes, I can just put a little note. I'm just going to park it and revisit this later. Diana says we have to set ourselves up for success. Eat, sleep, get love, stand outside, take your medication, etc. Absolutely. You're a person in the world. You get to still be a person. Be a person. We encourage that. Caroline was saying, or sitting on a train. I think maybe that was like an environment to study in. That's a good one because like a lot of people have a commute, right? Because maybe they have to take children to school, or some people have jobs where they can study on the job and they have a commute to that. So using that commute time wisely, a lot of students will like listen to lecture recordings. I had a student who, when they would take their daughter to school, they would have their daughter read their medical textbook to them while they were driving their daughter to school. So get really creative with how you use the time that you would otherwise like find time, feel that it was like a waste of time. You can actually use that to your advantage. And Caroline also wants us to know, and horses, if horses are special to you, maybe even having a horse figurine around. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about the fundamentals of study skills and now pass the mic over to Dr. Okeke to talk with you about planning for success.
Thank you so much, Associate Professor McGuire. I've heard so many good things, and I've just been having these flashbacks of the dinosaur ages when I was in medical school. And then also just thinking about some of the just wonderful things you said about, you're still a person, you're still a human being. Life is still happening, or as my niece and nephew say, life is lifing all the time. And it doesn't stop for medical school. So I learned that from them. But I want to just kind of go back about planning for success. During the bio break, Philip introduced me to his daughter, Athena, and I just want to share with everybody that Philip and Caroline shared some wonderful things as student ambassadors. Philip, what he's not telling you is that in physiology, his wife was pregnant with Athena, and we were actually having physiology class on Thanksgiving Day here in the States, and we were having class, and Philip's wife was expecting, and Philip was in class, and I say this to say that Philip and Carolyn are both excellent students, but planning for success involves knowing that there's some great sacrifices that you will have to make, and then there's some also times where you're going to have to stop and say, hey, I have to step away from this and have to plan around certain other things, but prioritizing and making those priorities. And so I just wanted to share that. Philip and I have known each other for a long time, and it's so nice to have met Athena. But to go back to what Associate Professor McGuire was saying, in just the planning of the success, everything that she says, I completely echo. Making sure that you are making time for your plan is really, really key. And with the Student Success Advising Program, one of the things that you will do or can do with your Student Success Advisor is make a plan. Now, there is a classic book that's called Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And one of the lines is the best laid plans of mice and men. You can make a plan, and the plan can not plan at all, meaning that you have to be adaptable. I think that Caroline and Philip talked about adaptability, and even Associate Professor McGuire. But making a plan is a good thing. So I don't know if you want to advance the slide, Associate Professor McGuire, so we can talk about that. Thank you so much. Now, this is not a hard and fast template that you have to use. Associate Professor McGuire mentioned the study skills session page, which I highly encourage you to visit, as she mentioned. And again, we are just suggesting things that could set you up for success. But this timetable that we have here is one of the ways to kind of start that wheel in motion of creating a plan. And research shows that 42% of your plans, or you're 42% more likely for your plans to be successful when you write them down or type them. So I heard Carolyn talk about writing things down in a notebook. Typing counts as well. What you're doing is taking that from your brain and putting it into external storage. You're starting that process of encoding. And I'm not a neurology expert, but I can tell you that when you start that process of encoding and making sure that your hippocampus actually teases out that material to decide what is going to be used for long-term storage and what's going to be discarded, once you start writing down and typing down your goals, you're starting that process. And so this timetable that we created here allows you to see everything that Associate Professor McGuire said. You know, what are you doing? When are you sleeping? When are you eating? When are you commuting? If you're like me, I have to say this. One of the shows that I'm a huge fan of, I've been waiting 2 years for it to come back. And I just watched it last Sunday. And if you all are fans and you know, if you know, you know. Waiting 2 years. Now, I'm not in medical school. I was, but I owe some big assignments to Associate Professor on Monday. She knows what those are. And I've been planning around the premiere of my show. So that meant on my timetable, I actually do use this timetable, you guys, call me a nerd, but I have planned out all the things I was going to do. Study skill session with the July 24 2 cohort. I need to do my assignments for Associate Professor McGuire. I need to eat, I need to sleep, and I need to watch my show. That's my self-care. My show comes on Sunday, and I've been waiting 2 years for it to come back, and episode 2 comes on Sunday, but I still have a big assignment that's due on Monday. And so I say this to tell you that I have to type down those things so I can set those into motion so I can actually achieve those goals. And those goals are SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time sensitive, because my goals have to be achieved for my show that comes on Sunday. I have to watch it, and it's 1 hour of my time, and I have to do it. Do you have an hour of time to do that? If you're planning around your live sessions, your commute, your family time, your dog walking time, your have to make a new chicken nugget for your daughter because the dog ate it time, like all of those things in your timetable. And one other thing I'll say before I turn it back to Associate Professor McGuire, which is at the top of this template, you notice that we have the magic number 40. Now, that number 40 is referring to the 40 hours of studying that we recommend. And we recommend that in addition to, now medical school is that's your new normal. Associate Professor McGuire mentioned that. That's your new normal. But that 40 hours of studying in addition to lifing is what we recommend. And so just using a template like this, starting those goals in motion by writing this down, keeping a track record, checking it off. And again, I want to emphasize to you guys, some of the students I've met with through this time when you all are preparing to get ready to start, previous students I've met with, I'm actually using this because there are things that I want to do. And again, I'm not a medical student, but I do want to share with you guys, when I was in medical school, I wasn't using this template. I wasn't using this plan. I wasn't writing. I was a student that Associate Professor McGuire was talking about, just waking up and willy-nilly, oh my gosh, I have to do everything. And I was just crazy. And it didn't work well. It caused a lot of distress. You expect to have a certain amount of stress in medical school. Eustress and distress. We want you to have more of eustress rather than a distress. I was operating in the distress. And when I was studying for my United States Medical Licensing Exam Part 1, Step 1, there was a big concert. And Philip has heard this story before because I've known Philip for a while, but it was New Kids on the Block. And I'm a huge New Kids on the Block fan. I'm a boy band fan, okay? And they were coming into town, and I was like, I've got to study for my boards. I'm not going to go see them. Well, a concert lasts about 1 hour and 30 minutes if you're lucky. And I really could have studied around that. Now, I can tell you this, that they didn't tour again for another 15 years. And I can tell you that I have beat myself up about that. I beat myself up about that. And why am I sharing this with you? Your life will change. Your life will definitely change. You will have a new normal. But what you can do if you are operating in that eustress where you've created this timetable and this plan that you might have to be adaptable to, the reality is that you do need to check off some items. You need to count in, your spouse time, your family time, your self-care time, your live class session time, your group time. You need to count those things in, operating in that 40 hours and figuring out how can you still be somewhat attached to your world that you operate in, your support system. So I want to share those things with you because we are just recommending a good way to start. And you can do this timetable. You can do this if you have a student success advisor. If you don't have a student success advisor, you can sit down and work with this. But I want you to know that I do operate with this because, again, the show that I'm watching on Sunday, I have to watch it. I'm not going to miss it. And I'm going to turn in my assignments to Associate Professor McGuire because I am going to be operating in a space of planning to be successful. I'm going to turn this back over to you, Associate Professor McGuire, and please let me know if you guys have any questions.
We do have a question in the
Sure.
chat window, Dr. KK, and it's from Shannon, and I think other inquiring minds want to know, what is this show?
Someone for sure would know. It's House of Dragons, only the greatest prequel ever. It's House of Dragons. It is the prequel to the Game of Thrones. You guys, and I bring this up because, I mean, literally, I've been waiting 2 years for the show to come back. And I make a lot of references when I'm teaching about the show, but I'm appalled that you all asked me that. No, it's House of Dragons. But I can tell you, are there no House of Dragons fans in here? No Game of
Philip
Thrones?
says it's been a long, long 2 years.
This is why Philip and I get along so well, you guys. Full disclosure, Philip and I used to be his academic advisor. I'm his current student success advisor. Philip and I know each other very well. But here's the thing. I owe a big assignment to Associate Professor McGuire on Monday. And it's quite lengthy, but I've got to turn this in and I've got to see House of Dragons. So I'm using the timetable. Yeah.
I think I didn't mention, like, in being a real human, like, be a fan of your thing and be that's still a part of your life, but like make that part of your routine. Like,
That's
okay, well,
right.
I have to prepare, I have to do all these other things on Saturday or on Monday or at
Yep.
these times on Sunday to make sure that I'm able to watch my show when it comes out, because that's important to me.
It
That's
is.
okay. You can definitely do that. Just make it part of your routine. I do have one more slide for you to go
Sure.
through before you
Sure.
pass it to me, just giving a little bit of things for people to think about with student success advising. And you and I are going to do a mock student success
Yeah.
advising session and a mock study hall in session 2.
Yes.
But just some things for people to think about
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
they don't know
Thank
too
you.
much about the program yet.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so the Student Success Advisory Program is an optional program. And I heard Carolyn say a little earlier, she said you need a cheerleader. And so Carolyn, I'm going to steal that from you because you can think of your student success advisor as your cheerleader. We've mentioned that in OUM, we are a community of learners. You're not alone. And your student success advisor is your cheerleader to say, not only you can do it, but look what you did this past week. Look how successful you were. You got through your first week of general principles with Dr. Owen, who was amazing. You got through your first written exam. You got through your first oral exam. If it didn't go so well, you can do better next time. So your student success advisor is really connected to you in the sense that you're going to be sharing your individualized study plan that you're going to create with your student success advisor. You're going to make sure that your study plan works for you. You heard Associate Professor McGuire talk about, being adaptable and revisiting that plan. You might not find your perfect study strategy on the first try, but your student success advisor can go over the student assessment, study skills assessment that she mentioned from the study skills page. And so the whole idea of your student success advisor is to accompany you in this journey so that you know that you're not alone. We have a bevy of student success advisors who work with students to make sure that they have a study plan, a time management plan, that they are incorporating self-care, and that they are being whole, healthy students. And I think, I know I heard Associate Professor McGuire talking about this. We want a safe, positive learning environment so that when you're ultimately thinking about your patients, you can ask yourself, if I were a patient, would I come to me as a clinician? That's really what you want to ask yourself. And usually when I'm in class and I'm hearing students give me feedback, I'm thinking, okay, I would go to this person as a doctor. I would take my nephew and my niece. But the Student Success Advising Program, it's optional. You can send an email to advisor@request at oum.edu.ws. If you're interested in being paired with the advisor, you don't have to do it, but again, we encourage it. You're welcome to enroll at any point in your journey. If you've already been matched with the advisor, I encourage you to set regular meetings. That's dedicated time, just like that dedicated space that Associate Professor McGuire was talking about, this space that you enjoy studying in and learn. Your SSA, that's dedicated time just between you and that person to talk about what's going on with your coursework and those other factors that are affecting it. Because we know that there are other factors that affect you besides studying, like the weather and life and illnesses and birthdays and just life, again, is lifing all the time. So the 4 things on this slide are just to share with you that the Student Success Advising Program is an optional program where you have your individualized study plan with your regular meetings, with a strategy with your advisor to see if it is working for you, and to revisit this adaptable plan to make sure that you're on the road for success. More importantly, I want you to know that the family of OUM, the resources at OUM, we're invested in your success. When you're successful, we're successful. And so that's what the program is. I encourage you to reach out if you have any more questions. And I am now turning this back over to you, Associate Professor McGuire.
Thank you. I want to like almost throw in like another surprise slide for you and push it back. And my teaching assistant is here with me as well. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about kind of getting the most out of your time. Dr. Okeke was talking about that like 3 hours a week, which is the ideal that we recommend. But what I want to say is like that we don't recommend you just like passively consume content. Passively, if you could passively drink from a fire hose, I don't think that's possible for 40 hours a week. What we mean is like actively engaging with material for at least 40 hours a week. And Dr. Okeke had a statistic about 40% more success. What was your statistic? Say it one more time.
You got it. Yeah, 40. If you write down your goal, your plan, you're 42% more likely to achieve it. And this is evidence informed. And I'll take that 42%. I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want you each to write this down, which is that you have a goal to make your study time active study time, and you're able to achieve that, because what we have seen with OUM students, and what you'll hear from our founder as well when she speaks with you all next week, is that being actively engaged in your material really makes a huge difference. Students who just are like, well, I spend 40 hours, like I listened to things for 40 hours, don't do as well, or they get really confused, like, well, I spent that amount of time, but I didn't do well. The reason is that you need to engage with your material, because that will help your brain to actually learn and keep it in. So getting the most out of your class and study groups, getting the most out of your study time is really about you being an active participant in your learning. You wouldn't be here if you didn't want to actively participate. So now's a good time to start. So getting the most out of class. So you will have live class. You have lots of options to attend their classes twice a day, so you can choose the time that works best for you. Live classes are offered at those times, and there are recordings available, but as Caroline said in the comments earlier, and Philip was saying this as well, like going to class live really makes a huge difference. Being part of the discussion is one way to be active. So like you can have 2 hours of passive study time listening to class, or you can have 2 hours of active study time going to class. And that's going to make a huge difference in the efficiency and effectiveness of that 2 hours. So we really encourage that. You also will have topic lectures in your courses. And a lot of those, they're recorded lectures, but absolutely you're not sitting there passively listening to that lecture. You're engaging with that material while you're going to or attending the topic lecture, even though it's on your own time. So there are activities within the topic lecture itself. It's self-paced, so you can stop at any point, and I encourage you to do that. So Caroline was talking about flashcards, and people were saying, what flashcards? She's saying, make your own flashcards. So that's another way to actively being engaged with the material, actively writing yourself questions, writing things down, setting a goal before you start the topic lecture. What am I going to get out of this topic lecture? Because then you're going to be 40% more successful in getting that out of that topic lecture. Reading, which Philip mentioned that as being really important. You will get more out of class. You will get more out of study group. You will get more out of your own learning if you make the time, if it's part of your routine to go through the readings. You'll also do better on your board examinations, because the board examinations use the information in the textbooks. So don't rob yourself and thinking, oh, well, I'll just watch the topic lectures and then that'll be everything that I need to know. Absolutely. You need to get the most out of all the material that's offered to you. We also have office hours. Dr. Owen will talk a little bit about, the fact that there are office hours and general principles, and you'll get the information about when to access those and what the content is when you're in general principles. But there's opportunity for you to meet with the course professors when you have questions and for reviews and all of that. So absolutely utilize those. Think of what your questions are. Submit those before review sessions. Come to the office hours and ask questions. You're not like, you not knowing the answer to something doesn't mean that you're not smart or not getting it. You formulating the question and then having a discussion with the course professor about it in an office hour, particularly if it's like a group office hour, or if it's just one-on-one, is another form of active learning where you're having a discussion about the topic. And guess what? You're going to get the right answer because it's with the course professor. And then study groups as well is another way to actively learn, because in study groups, you're often, teaching someone something, you're learning something from someone, you're asking a question about it, you're maybe splitting things up and being really strategic about how you cover the material. You will get a lot more out of class and the content if you're able to discuss it with other students, even if it's just one other person to start. So challenge yourself to do that. Challenge yourself to go outside your comfort zone and get a study group. Okay, getting the most out of your support system. This is a term you've heard a little bit today, and if you come to the webinars, I talk about support systems a lot, and I always ask people about it. And what it really means is like, you are a person, and it's like ultimately up to you to be the one person that's there like on exam day, and the one person that's there in the clinical skills day, and the one person that's there like in front of the patient. Ultimately, even though way before that you're going to be in a group with people talking about patients. Anyways, you're not alone though. Like you need a support system around you. Like ultimately it's up to you, but you need people around you to make it work. Don't be an island, even though we are all united by the beautiful land of one island. Don't be an island yourself. Right. We are all, we're united by that one land and island, but we are global, right? So be in the mindset of reaching out to others. You should not be alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. Okay, so think about who are the people that I can currently rely on in my support system, and who are the people that I can add. So I put a few things in here. So first is peers. So we have around 18, 20 of you here today, you guys are all peers. You guys are all the support system for each other. Because guess what? Nobody knows what it's like to go through medical school better than the 18 other people in this that are going through it at the same time as you. And they're going to have completely different life experiences from you. And so you're going to have some things in common and some things that you didn't have in common when you started medical school. And now that person went through something that now you're going through now. It makes a huge difference feeling understood and having somebody to talk to about it. So your peers are absolutely your support system. So Caroline and Philip, who are here today, are your student ambassadors. There are other student ambassadors that you're going to get to meet in a week next week, and who will be around for the first few weeks of general principles as well. You might have met some of them if you attended the webinars. Also, your student ambassadors are your ambassadors into the culture of being in medical school. So they're absolutely there to kind of let you know this is what to expect. Once you get in the thing, you're like, is this right? Like, is this what I'm doing? Like, those are the people that ask me like, oh, yeah, this is what you can do. Or, oh, here's some resources over here that you haven't necessarily thought of. Or, oh, I know somebody who's like been in that situation and this is what they did. Right? So it doesn't mean that you have to use those resources or you have to do it the way that someone else did, but even just knowing that other people are going through something or other people have struggled or other people have gotten through it can be a huge help and part of your support system. Your faculty and your student success advisors and your research advisors, I should mention that as well, are part of your support system. Those are the people you're going to be talking to quite a lot about your study skills and your study strategies, and who are you going to be talking to when you're like, oh, I didn't do as well on that exam as I wanted, or oh, I did amazing on that exam. Like maybe my score wasn't like 100%, but I felt really good about the questions. I really understood it. I did really great prep like the day before the exam. I was in my routine. I was feeling really good going into the exam, and I feel like that's a huge win. So those are the people that are going to celebrate those kinds of things with you. And then your family and friends. I say that, I was like, oh, your family friends. Those are a huge part of your support system. And what I will say, and I think, anybody that's gone through medical school is going to echo this, like you're going to have a lot of friends that you've had before medical school that may not be friends, continue to be your friends throughout medical school and beyond, because they maybe are just not people that can deal with the level of attention that you can give them through medical school, or the level of need that you might have. And that's okay. You've not done anything wrong. Maybe there's time in the future where that friendship can rekindle, or where you're back on the same page. Maybe not. Maybe you make other friends throughout that, and you've got to use your time for those. Recognize that those things happen. You're not a bad person for not being a good friend to that person in a time where you weren't able to provide for the things that person needed. It's okay. And it happens to other people too. It's good. And your families, you already know you've got family members that are like supportive of you and your endeavors, and that you can rely on certain things. And you know that you've got other family members that are maybe in like a wider sphere, can provide, kind of satellite level of support in certain things. That's going to be true through medical school as well. And continue to be like, oh, this person can provide like satellite support. Like, maybe like once a year they can make a meal for me, or whatever it is. And it's okay to recognize that you have people that are going to be like a core, and people that are further out, and that's okay. And people will, some people will understand and some people won't. Sometimes it takes some sacrifices and some struggles to learn those kinds of things, but and I can't predict the future of what that will look like for you. All I can say is that you are a good person. You are doing the best you can every day. And sometimes things happen where it's not the right time in other people's lives for that. And that's okay too. Okay, so that's getting the most out of your support system. There's lots more to say on that, but not in such a short session. And if you want to have a further discussion with me about support systems or with your student success advisor, they'd be happy to kind of pick that through, help you to recognize or help you to have some opportunities for building and releasing things in your support system. All right, getting the most from online learning. So I'm not going to talk about all of these things today. What I do want you to know is just like see them, is that there's all these platforms that you're going to have to learn in order to be a successful student at OUM. You are not alone in having to just like figure it all out. There are resources to support you as you learn these. So I only just today just want you to kind of see like, oh, this is what to kind of expect. Like I'm going to be using Zoom like we are today. And in our live classes, we use Zoom as well. It's pretty similar to this. You might have a slide deck or people might be sharing passages or pictures on the screen like this. You'll have students that are on video and who are talking in the chat window or raising hands and chatting, so similar to what we're doing today. Moodle, you will be using our study skills course is in there. The OE classroom is in there, general principles, and all your classes will be in Moodle. So if you're not familiar with it, that's totally okay. You'll get familiar with it. There in the OE classroom, there are our IT support team is like unparalleled, and they've done all these wonderful videos that help you learn some of these resources. So not to be like intimidated, just to know that they exist, and these are the things you're going to pick up as you go through. Clinical Key is where all of your textbooks are. It's a completely online library. You can log in from an institutional login from Oceana University, or you can, once you have your OUM email, you can log in directly, and then that's really the way that you want to do stuff, because you can make notes in Clinical Key and highlights, and you can make flashcards, and you can do text to speech, and it has all these wonderful features if you log into Clinical Key and Clinical Key Student. But that's basically your library resource. Some students do like to have physical copies of textbooks as well that they purchase separately, but you don't have to do that unless you really, really want to. Everything is available. And all of your classes, your preclinical courses and your clinical courses all use textbooks in Clinical Key, so you don't have to use any outside resources. Complete Anatomy is our platform for anatomy. I guess it gives you the complete spectrum of the anatomy that you'll need to learn. A lot of other medical schools use Complete Anatomy for their anatomy as well. And all of the medical science courses use Complete Anatomy as a resource for teaching anatomy, and it's great. So you'll learn how to use that as you go along. ExamSoft is our exam platform. There's a whole slew of videos on this and how exam proctoring works, how you do logins. This is a really important one to feel comfortable with, because the last thing that we want you to do is like go to take your first exam and you've never seen ExamSoft before, and you're like, I don't know what to do, and I'm gonna miss the exam window, and like, what's going on over here, and my computer is not like the settings aren't appropriate, I don't have the right webcam, so ExamSoft is definitely something that you have to like learn to use, not while you're taking your first exam. You need to do it in advance, and there's videos and things to learn about that in advance. SIS is our student information system. So all your student records are in SIS. Your academic calendar is in SIS. It's in Moodle as well. But basically, like everything we want to know about you, or everything you want to know about you, is in SIS, is in your student record. It's all electronic. So when you do things like, submit your case studies and you want to see your clinical supervisor's reports and letters that are about you and all that kind of content, is all available to you. On SIS, you can set your time zones in SIS and so on and so forth. So that's something that you'll learn, and our IT support team have used videos for that as well. So those are the kind of the basic resources. I know I'm probably forgetting. Oh, Turnitin. You don't need that so much right away. But there is a academic integrity module where you're learning a little bit more about Turnitin. So those are the kinds of things, like, we just don't want you to like go in and be like, ah, like, not only do like I have to learn all of this material, I have to learn how to use all of these resources. So these are things, if they're like, have never heard of them before, I would suggest even like Googling them if you want, but all of the kind of how-tos and like what's in here and all of that is in your A Week classroom, which is available to you now. So you can go in and kind of watch the like 3-minute video on like how to access Moodle, so on and so forth. So I just really recommend that you do that before classes get started, so you can really get the most out of your online learning and you're not trying to learn like a whole new culture while you're trying to learn the material. So you can really get the most out of your online learning from that. And as you use those resources, you'll get better at them and like learn all the features and like start to have things that like really work for you. So like some people don't even realize that like ExamSoft has like text to speech if you like want to use it. So if you're like, oh, I'm like a auditory learner rather than like visual, so like it really helps me in an exam if someone can read the question out to me instead of having to read it. Well, ExamSoft has that feature, so you'll learn all these like advanced things the more you read them as well. And then the last thing that I'll say on getting the most from online learning is WhatsApp. And we don't have that as an official university platform, but most of our students do use WhatsApp as a means of communicating with each other outside of the classroom. And so we just say, if you haven't used WhatsApp before, I would recommend getting that app. It's a completely free app. I would recommend doing that before orientation, because then anyone you kind of meet or connect with during orientation, you can connect on WhatsApp. And also students use it to like form study groups and to usually there's like a cohort group on WhatsApp and there's like study groups in WhatsApp. And the reason why students use that application in particular is because it's free. It allows you to use your own phone number, and because you'll have people that you're communicating with in New Zealand and Australia and Samoa and USA and Canada. So you're not going to like up your phone. You're not going to have like a $2,000 phone bill, right? Because communicating on WhatsApp, you don't have any charges for having those kinds of communications. So we do recommend that. And Caroline wants you to know it's very important to prepare the text side of your study to avoid last minute panics or topics. We do not want you to panic. Do not panic. Just learn everything in advance. And then, oh, right, I forgot I mentioned WhatsApp at the meet and greet. So Shannon was letting everyone know that there's a WhatsApp group for everyone in the 2024-02 intake. We call you guys the 24-02 cohort. You guys can call yourselves whatever you want in your own WhatsApp group. And if you have access to the chat window, you can leave your details there so that, and Shannon will add you to that group. Diana has posted her information and her email. I won't read that out, but if anyone wants to grab that from the chat window, Diana's put that there as well. Okay, that's getting the most from your online learning. Okay, so we're getting to the end of our session, thankfully, because we're getting to the end of our time as well. I wanted to provide a little bit of detail on doing a mock active study session, which is something that Dr. Okeke and I are going to do with you in the study skills and test taking strategy. Study skills for success, is that what? Study skills for student success. Session 2, which is on Thursday if you're in North America, or Friday if you're in Australia, New Zealand, or Samoa. Same time, same place, different Zoom link. So we're going to be doing some mock active study sessions with you, and we're also going to do a mock students success advisor session as well. But I wanted you to kind of get an idea of what this looks like, so it's not something that's like a big surprise to you before you get there. So what we're going to do in our mock active study session is that we're going to pick a topic. This is what you would do in your own study session. If you are going to have like an hour for study session, you would pick a topic. So this is what we're going to do in our mock study session. Generally, we would recommend you would choose a topic learning objective, which is what we call like the individual things that we give you when we say, you need to learn this particular thing. We're going to give you one in the mock session. We're going to give you a topic. And then, so you kind of take some time to choose your topic in that session. Tomorrow, we're just going to, or 2 days, we're going to give it to you. Then you take 20 minutes to either read something about that topic, to watch a topic lecture recording, to write something about the topic, or to recite some information about the topic. And the reason why I say read, watch, write, or recite is that we want you to do something like active with it. So watch sounds passive, right? But you're not watching and just sitting there like this. When you watch, you're engaging with the material. So that's something to practice in that study session if you choose to watch on the content on that topic. So you do that for about 20 minutes. Then at the end of that, you're not like, oh, I'm ready to take a break. I finished my studying. No, at the end of that, you're summarizing what you just learned. So this is, sorry, my cat has knocked something over. So the summarization part is really important to help get that into your brain. Okay, I just spent 20 minutes learning something. What did I actually learn? Maybe I just was like zoning out. Like maybe I watched something, or maybe I was reading something, but I was like thinking about what I wanted to have for lunch, or like when the next New Kids on the Block concert was for the last 20 minutes. Okay, so that's why we do the summary step, because you actually need to figure out, what did I actually learn? I like New Kids on the Block too. I went to a New Kids on the Block concert. Okay, so then after you've summarized, then you write a question. And the reason for this is really important because you want to have your own question bank. If anything that you read about like medical school student success, or like study strategies in medical school, everybody talks about practice questions. So the more practice questions you can expose yourself to, the better. You just always want to have a good bank of practice questions. And it actually increases your active learning time if you're writing those questions yourself. And if you have a study group and you write one question based on the topic, and you have 5 members in your study group who also write a question, now you've got 6 practice questions on a topic. That's a pretty good bank of questions. And I would say you're fairly likely to get within the realm of what you're going to be asked on an exam if you've got 5 to 6 questions on a topic. So I highly recommend that. Okay, then after that, in our mock active study session, we're going to do a share. You share your question so you can give like a little practice to everyone else. And you can share the answer once everyone's had a chance to answer it. And then we'll explain the answer. We're going to provide some practice questions to do this at our study skills mock session. It takes a little bit of time to get to that, but we encourage you to, we're going to do that in that session, but we'll have some that we can share as well, just to get you kind of to see what the questions are going to be like. So you get an idea about the types of questions you need to write. Okay, and then the second part of that is really important. You have to explain the answer. So this is really important because when you're taking tests, you're going to have to be able to choose the right answer and rule out the answers that are not correct. So you need to be able to explain, oh, this answer is correct because this, and these are incorrect because this. And if you are doing active learning, you're increasing your amount of active learning time as well. If you can actually say, oh, I know this answer is plausible, but it's not correct because of this. I know this answer is plausible, but it's not correct because of this. This is the best answer because this. That's really important skill to have, because when you get into an exam, the answers are going to seem like maybe in some cases that might be true. I can see how, or I've seen a patient in the past. I'm a nurse. I've seen a patient in the past and they had some of those symptoms and they had this. Okay, but you need to be able to explain, oh, well, maybe that was true for some case, right? But what is the best answer for this question and why? That's a really important skill that you're going to need to know for board exams and for your practice as a doctor. So being able to explain that is really important. Then you take a break. Remember, it's always really important we take a break and then we repeat. So this is a study routine, an active study routine. You pick a topic, you do an activity with the topic, you summarize what you've just learned, you write a question about it. If you're in a study group, like we're going to be in a couple of days, you can share the question and talk about the answers, and you guys can have a little bit more discussion, more active study time, and then you take a break. So this is what we're going to be doing, and this is a practice that we encourage adoption of. Whether you want to keep it in this order or not is kind of up to you, but this is how we're going to do it in our session coming up. Okay. So we want to thank you for your time and attention today. If you have any questions kind of about the topics that we discussed today, we have a couple minutes now to talk about that. If you're like, ooh, it's kind of like many things, and maybe I'll have some questions at the start of our session in a couple of days, you're welcome to save them for then. There's no like time limit on questions that you might have. But if you do have anything that you would like to if you have a question about it, or any advice or personal experience that you would like to add, please go ahead and type that into the chat now. I'll provide a couple of minutes for that. Caroline wants us to know, celebrate wrong answers. You could remember those better than the correct answers. Failure can be great for learning. Use it to your advantage. I think it's really great to think about, because like, especially if you get embarrassed by a wrong answer. So like, if you're in class and you give a wrong answer, like people are like, oh, I don't even want to attend class because I'm scared I'll give a wrong answer. If you give a wrong answer and get embarrassed in class, it's like the best thing for you, because you're never going to forget
Yeah.
that being the wrong answer and what the right answer was. So it's really good. So I'm glad you said that, Caroline. Chi, do you have anything? I'm sorry, Dr. Okay, do you have anything you want to ask?
No, I've just heard such good information, and I thank you, Associate Professor McGuire and Philip and Caroline and Dr. Owen, who is here, but more importantly, the students who showed up to learn in the session and be open to learning. You know, we're so invested in your success. And we just really appreciate you guys sharing and hearing, and you guys are coming together just to, you know, in your WhatsApp group, and just, you know, we're excited for you in this journey. I love what you said, Associate Professor McGuire, about the active learning and the rationale of why you choose an answer, and ruling in the correct answers and ruling out the distractors. Like, we're just excited about the process of learning. And so I'm just thrilled to be here and be a part of this. You guys can tell I'm high energy, but I get excited about this every single time students come to this point where you want to learn. So I just want to thank you guys. Thank you guys so much, because I'm excited. I'm living vicariously through you. So just want to say that. Thank you so much, Associate Professor McGuire. You've been very gracious about that study skills page. That's really your baby, and I'm just happy to be along, burping the baby a little bit. Burp, burp.
I just like working with you, so any chance I get to do that. Okay, so we want to thank everybody for your time and attention. Today, we want to thank our student ambassadors, Caroline and Philip, for joining us today. Dr. Owen, your general principals, course director, as well as our associate director for resources, and a preclinical faculty member. We want to thank Shanda Gordon and Moretta Retty, who are your admissions counselors and who have joined us today as well. And we want to thank each and every one of you. You're just now, starting to think about, oh, how am I going to like balance all this time with the things that I need to do in my life. And you've already taken the first steps, which is being able to balance your time with our live session today. So you're, 50% of the way there to being able to attend live class as well. So thanks so much for doing that. And we look forward to seeing you all for our mock study hall and mock student success advisor session on Thursday/Friday. Thanks everybody, and talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.